seen him cast a Brainstorm.
Well, he kind of left the format in part because he was frustrated with the power level of blue cards. He plays mostly Modern now, got rewarded for that with a top 8 in the Baltimore Open a little while ago, and has put down the Mox Diamonds and Life from the Loams here and is just playing Reanimator.
Yeah, 5-0 so far in Legacy with Reanimator. Talked to him about it. He said the deck is just easy to play.
It is. It's very powerful. In this matchup, Michael's side of the table, Charlotte Sultai, he's got some hits and some misses. The big cards for him in the matchup, his counterspells, his precise discard, and Deathrite Shaman. Those are his big modes of disruption, at least game 1.
Yeah, the Ancestral Visions Shardless Agent package, a little slow for this kind of game.
Part of the problem with this matchup is because you're playing with Shardless Agent, you don't want to play with cheap counterspells. You don't want to be cascading into Daze and Spell Pierce. So Michael is leaning very heavily on his Force of Wills and his Deathrite Shamans to provide him enough defense against Reanimator.
All right, well, the first play is going to be from Braverman. He won the die roll, was on the play. On turn 2, he's going to go for a Hymn to Turok on Jeff. We'll see whether or not an Entomb or something is cast in response, or whether we're just going to go right for the hand.
Now, him does have moments of being a little bit bad in the matchup because you can just put something large into the graveyard, but on the balance, it's a pretty good piece of disruption. Not quite as powerful as Thoughtseize because Reanimator is a deck where you're trying to slap A plus B together. Precise discard is very powerful against them, but him is not as bad as it would appear on the surface.
Now, Jeff's going to go ahead and Entomb in response to this, and I actually kind of want to... Yeah, he can do this. I want to put out some math here. So Jeff has a Gristlebrand and a Grave Titan in his hand. So the odds that Michael actually just naturally hits one of Jeff's creatures are fairly high. You would do this because you don't want Michael hitting, say, your Entomb and something else. But actually leaving the Entomb as a shield card may be like the mathematical way you want to approach this.
Well, the risk in that scenario is that Michael takes the Entomb and a non-creature, and your hand is no way to get something into the graveyard and a bunch of big dudes in your hand.
Right, certainly is a concern. I'm curious, and without doing it, I think the math may actually work out that you still would you'd rather still leave Entomb just as a shield card if you have something more relevant. Either way, so he Entombs Gristlebrand. Michael hits the Hymn to Turok and gets Gristlebrand and Lotus Petal out of Jeff's hand.
So not a disaster for Jeff unless he was really leaning on that second mana.
You're right, though. There certainly are plays to both ways on that.
And it looks like Jeff has picked up a second land and a Reanimate amongst his cards here, so we might see some fireworks this turn.
Yeah, going for something like Gristlebrand. Jeff does have the land to accompany it. Typically, Force of Will is a card you see 3 or 4 of them in a Shardless Sultai deck in the main. It's not a card that's great in the deck because it's not flush on blue spells, but it's kind of just a necessary evil.
Well, this deck has almost no defense against combo decks otherwise. Because you can't play with Spell Pierce Daze or other counter spells.
And this will be Reanimate targeting Gristlebrand.
This is what Jeff called, easy mode?
Yeah, he said this deck's just he said this deck's easy. And I think Braverman with the Force of Will, but no blue card. This is a situation that Shardless Sultai is in more often than it would like to care to admit.
Now, I don't know if this deck is especially easy to play, but it's certainly got to be easier than trying to grind people down with Life from the Loam, Wasteland, Grove of the Burn, Willows, and such that we've seen Jeff do over the last couple of years in Legacy.
I mean, if you want to talk about the easy mode, Jeff here gets him to Turok on turn 2, and then on turn 2, he gets to make Gristlebrand with Force of Will backup.
Pretty good start.
There are draws like this from Reanimator that just seem plumb unfair.
Yep. And Michael's a deck playing with Force of Will and Deathrite Shaman. It's not like he's playing a deck with no protection here, but the really powerful openings here from Reanimator are just tough to contend with, even if your deck has some level of preparation for it.
And see here, fetch for a third land from Braverman, but Gristlebrand is in play. Jeff's still remaining 2 cards are Force of Will and a blue card. Michael's Hymn to Turok failed to hit what it needed to.
I guess the card he really needed to hit was the Brainstorm. But that Brainstorm came off the top for Jeff, so there wasn't anything to be done. Sometimes this just happens.
Liliana is the play for Michael, and now we see from Jeff will go ahead and draw 7 off the Gristlebrand. Little coy here. He already has the Force of Will and blue card. But maybe he can discard a lesser blue card.
Exactly.
Draws another Force of Will and another blue card.
Jeff just mulling over the option, got all the riches of the world afforded to him.
Down to 3, he'll Force of Will away the Liliana.
I guess I don't really need the Brainstorm because I get to draw 7 cards a turn, so that one can go away.
All right, and now Gristlebrand will connect. Jeff up to 10, Michael down to 11. And another play here of land and some Lotus Petals from Jeff. Just going to be very difficult for Michael to get back into it.
Yeah, now Jeff's in a position to hard cast the Force of Will if he's feeling so inclined. Jeff also with the main deck Pithy Needle, you saw him pick that up. Definitely a concession primarily to Deathrite Shaman.
And Michael will go for him to Turok again. But yeah, Jeff having connected with Gristlebrand, that means 7 more cards. It's going to be very hard for him really to make any traction against this fuel of card advantage.
Now this is more of that fuzzy math you alluded to. Jeff could just draw a bunch of cards in response and try to insulate the 2 copies of Force of Will that are in his hand. He could hard cast a Force of Will if he wanted to, leave the Force of Will left over, and if Michael follows up with something good, could draw 7, and all he needs to do is find a blue card. So this is one of those, all paths probably lead to approximately the same place, but trying to just find the right line of play here.
And it looks like he's going to go for the hard cast Force of Will.
Yeah, and this puts him in a position where he, if he needs to, can still draw 7, and all he needs to find is a blue card to pair with the Force of Will. Because at this point, the Force of Wills are the most valuable cards in Jeff's deck.
Yes,
all he needs to do is protect himself from disaster.
Michael's side, he'll make Deathrite Shaman.
Really good on turn 1.
Yeah.
Not so good now.
Turn 1 Deathrite, especially on the play, can be backbreaking for Reanimator.
Yep.
Gristlebrand will draw 7 for Jeff. He'll go down to 2. Just needs to get 2 more swings in. I'm not sure he's found. He has not yet to find a blue card. There we go. Does find in 7 cards 1 blue card to pair with that Force of Will. So
Exhume as well if he wants to try to engineer a backup reanimation target.
Lotus Petal and land into play for Jeff. Will not be able to draw 7 again because of that Deathrite Shaman. Yo, careful study. That's his remaining blue card. So right now he cannot Force a Will because he cast the careful study. He'll go for Exhume. And now Michael will Force of Will himself. Oh, you know, he has a daze left over for his Force of Will. So there is a blue card in Jeff's hand. So he'll go down to 1 off this Force of Will.
This allows him to get the Elish Norn back. Now he's got a 9/9 in case of 7/7 is not quite good enough. Also kills the Deathrite Shaman, which is nice.
And that's going to work. Elish Norn into play. She'll join with Gristlebrand. He'll swing for 9. Now it will be Braverman the one at 1 and Jeff the one at 10.
2 lethal threats also, so even if Michael rips some sort of edict effect or a way to kill a creature, doesn't really matter.
And a good fight put up by Braverman, but game 1 will go to Hoogland.
Yeah, I mean, Michael kept punching there, even though things were going really bad. There's just not a lot to do against that opening. Jeff with a very fast reanimation, Michael without Force of Will at the time, and Jeff strung together enough Force of Wills to protect from Liliana the Veil or any other follow-up that Michael had.
All right, well, game 1s typically are good for the combo decks. Let's go over to what the options Shardless Sultai has in the sideboard for this strategy.
So he's got 3 copies of Disfigure, a Flusterstorm, a Vendilion Click, a Hymn to Torak, a Duress, a Golgari Charm, 2 copies of Nile Spellbomb, a Toxic Deluge, a Thoughtseize, and 3 copies of Meddling Mage. I think the Thoughtseize definitely comes into the matchup. The Flusterstorm, the Vendilion Click, the Duress, all the pretty common disruption. I don't know if he's going to want to go up to another Hymn to Torak. It feels like it's okay to leave in, but not something he really wants to cap out on. And then the specific anti-combo, anti-graveyard measures, the 2 Nile Spellbombs, and the 3 copies of Meddling Mage are the big upgrades here.
Yeah, Hymn to Turok there, we did see Michael pull one off, turn 2 on the play, and it really didn't amount to much. Jeff was able to untap and combo with force backup anyway. Yeah. On Jeff's side, there's not, I mean, so he can go to the Force Show and Tell in his sideboard. That's fairly standard for Reanimator to have that sort of package.
I think it's going to come in too because he's playing against a deck with Deathrite Shaman. He can assume Michael has more ways to interact with the graveyard post-board. I don't think Jeff gets away from his reanimation package entirely, but I think he would like to have another route to get something into play because the graveyard might be very hostile for Jeff this game. Michael probably has a lot of ways to interact with it. Also 2 copies of Pithy Needle. Pithy Needle pretty solid in the matchup as it's an answer to both Deathrite Shaman and Liliana the Veil, which are 2 of Michael's best cards in the matchup.
Yeah, it has 2 copies of City of Traders, which usually go in alongside the Show and Tells.
Yeah, so I think that's a pretty straightforward sideboarding here. The Show and Tells, the City of Traders, and the Needles. He has 2 copies of Thoughtseize and Flusterstorm. Those may or may not come in. They're sort of on the fence there. They're probably for more ostensibly combo matchups. They obviously have tons of targets in Michael's deck, but the cost of sideboarding in cards like that is very high from Jeff's deck because it's an engine. He's trying to assemble a particular combo of cards. So him trading Thoughtseizes with Michael, that's not really the game plan he's looking to play. So I would be surprised if they came in, but I wouldn't rule it out either.
Yeah, that's more or less what you'd expect. Just wants to lessen his vulnerability to cards like Nile, Spellbomb, and Deathrite.
Exactly. While not getting away from the reanimation entirely, and he does have answers to Michael's anti-graveyard stuff, so Jeff can still just entomb and reanimate quickly like we saw in Game 1, but I think he wants some backup plans here in the sideboarded games because Michael is likely to ratchet up the sideboard hate on the graveyard.
Yeah, as far as things like Flusterstorm, against decks that are generally disrupting you using blue cards, be them Spell Pierces, Dazes, Force of Wills, they tend to be very strong. Now, against decks that are going with a large discard suite, Flusterstorm can be awkward in those situations.
And it's really bad against the cards that Michael just plays to the board to try to interact. Deathrite Shaman, Liliana the Veil, Nile Spellbomb, Flusterstorm provides nothing in those spots. And so I agree with you basically. If it's totally locking out or answering your opponent's mode of interaction, Flusterstorm is very good, but when your opponent has a diverse suite of things to be doing, like some graveyard stuff, some discards, some meddling mages, Flusterstorm is just not a very effective tool.
All right, well, they get ready for Game 2. We're going to talk a little bit about Cardboard Crack. We talked about that this weekend. This is the popular webcomic. And now paperback books we have on sale. You've seen the 3 volumes. They've been on sale for a while now. But now the 4th volume is available at starcitygames.com/cardboardcrack. Each of the volumes can be yours at $12.99 each. Learn more. If you read the comic at all.
I am familiar with the Twitter handle and the web strip that gets sent with the weekly newsletter. I've not read the books yet, but the first 3 were so well received that we come out with a 4th. They're all available on sale now for $12.99 a piece at starcitygames.com/cardboardcrack.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. I have just gotten into it recently, and I'm a pretty big fan of it, actually.
It's lighthearted. It's whimsical. Most of them get a chuckle out of me, which is saying a lot because I don't laugh at many things.
All right, we're underway. Game 2 here. Michael Braverman will be on the play again. Now that he knows what he's up against, presumably he'll be able to be a lot more informed with his mulliganing decisions as well.
Yeah, there's a lot more pressure on Michael here in the post-board games now that he has this information to find a counter spell, some anti-graveyard measure. He can't just keep, I got a Tarmogoyf, I've got a Planeswalker or a Hymn. Those kind of hands aren't going to cut it.
He's going to go ahead and go to 6 here, Jeff, keeping on 7.
It's a feature of Legacy, if you're more familiar with watching Standard play, where usually your hands of lands and spells are just fine across the board. Some matchups like White-Blue Heroic or Mono-Red Aggro that can be aggressive or fast or specific enough that you're looking for particular tools. But usually your hands of lands and spells you can just keep. In Legacy, the sandbox is so big and the decks are so powerful and games can end so quickly that you see much more hands of lands and spells get sent back because if Michael, like I said, opens up a hand where his first play of the game is a turn 2 Tarmogoyf, and he has no disruption, he's just got to send that back. That's not going to cut it against any of Jeff's good hands.
Yeah, even cards like Ancestral Visions, those are the kind of things you'd like a turn 1 Ancestral Visions on the play most game 1s, but in this matchup, it's actually a poor opening.
Yeah, because, if the game gets to that stage, it's already going well for you to begin with.
Exactly. So he's looking definitely for, I would think, a turn 1 Thoughtseize, Duress, Deathrite Shaman, or Nile Spellbomb.
Yeah, he's got to have one of his good turn 1 plays. A hand that's built around, I suppose a turn 1 Brainstorm looking for help can be fine, but the proactive turn 1 plays is what really Michael's in the market for.
Both these players currently 5-0 in Legacy. Jeff looking to hand Michael his first loss.
I was going to say Brainstorm or Ponder there, and then looked at Michael's list, and there's actually no Ponders in it. Hence my momentary confusion.
Can he keep on 6? And he will. Underway, turn 1 just has a land. So none of his really strong 1-mana plays. Does have Flusterstorm in hand. So we'll go over to Jeff's side. Looks like he's going to lead off on Ponder, see if Michael wants to Flusterstorm it. It looks like he does. And when a deck is so low to the ground as Reanimator, you almost just have to really can't be picky about which spells you're countering.
So there's a couple arguments for using the Flusterstorm there. One, it could be just a mana consideration curve. If Michael anticipates he's tapping out for the next couple turns, he's just got to get in while the getting's good. That's actually the primary one. Because all of Jeff's ways to get something large into play involve casting a spell, as opposed to Sneak and Show, where sometimes they go off through sneak attack, Flusterstorm is a very valuable counterspell. It's basically just Animate Dead is the only kind of weird backdoor way they have of getting something that doesn't involve a spell. So if Michael is willing to use a Flusterstorm here, I believe it's either because he's got a lot of disruption in his hand, or he feels his mana is going to be tight over the next couple turns and doesn't want to be committed to holding up a mana the whole way through.
Fetch land here from Braverman. Looks like he may be going for a turn 2 play. Has Tarmogoyf available. At some point, he doesn't need a threat. I guess he'd prefer to be something like Deathrat Shaman, but if he can get this through without consequence, it'll be pretty good.
And this is why you see the turn 1 Flusterstorm here, is because now there's a clock in play. Jeff is less likely to be able to go off this turn because he's no longer, his Potter didn't resolve. He's down that selection. And now Michael actually has a clock and he needs to shorten the game.
Well, now the ball's in Jeff's court. He has Michael tapped out. Can he make a play? It's going to be land. Looks like he could have Lotus Petal, but no, he'll just pass back. Missing some piece right now.
Very good news for Jeff. And I think he didn't want to play the Petal there because there's some chance he just gets hit by Abrupt Decay, which is a card Jeff would prefer to ignore.
Has one of his monsters, Tidespout Tyrant, in his hand.
No guarantee that the Abrupt Decays are in Michael's deck post-board. Maybe got cut, but no reason to do it if there's no reason to do it.
On Michael's side, he's definitely land heavy. See a copy of Wasteland moved to the front. And he'll just continue to tap out, hoping that Jeff can't put the combo together. It's going to be Shardless Agent into Tarmogoyf. Not much defense being played by Michael, but a lot of offense here.
Yep. I mean, you know, he's done a little bit of disruption. He's got a sizable clock in play now. And just has to cross his fingers that Jeff can assemble a combo in time.
So he has now 7 power, or rather 8 power on the board.
And if Jeff is contemplating using a Force of Will here on the Tarmogoyf, that's very good news for Michael, because it means that Jeff's hand is missing some critical piece, and Jeff needs to potentially buy time to find whatever he's missing.
Yeah, he'd much rather use these Force of Wills offensively than defensively.
He wants to be pushing through his combo. He wants to keep Michael off of his response with something like Liliana of the Veil. If he's considering using it on Tarmogoyf, it means there's something pretty bad going on with his hand right now. You can see Reanimate's in his hand, so he does not have a way to put something into the graveyard. Appears to be the problem.
Force of Will, pitching Tidespout Tyrant to counter the Tarmogoyf. Even then, that'll actually put a creature in the graveyard, so that pumps the on-board Tarmogoyf. It hardly prevents any damage.
Yep. I mean, over the long term it does, but I don't know how much of a long term there's going to be.
Because Jeff has to pay a life for the Force of Will, and then also he loses a life to this Tarmogoyf. So he's taking 2 extra damage this turn to prevent 3 next turn. There's no good way to do it.
Yep.
Jeff fetching twice, now down to 12.
Although it also gives him the option of just reanimating the Tarmogoyf now. If he can't find a way to put one of his own large creatures in the graveyard, reanimate works on either graveyard, and if Michael's without a way to answer the Tarmogoyf, well, then something good's going.
Well, draw for Jeff here is Show and Tell, and that's a pretty good one. He does have a copy of Grave Titan in his hand.
And Grave Titan in the deck as insulation measure both against Edicts and against Caracas. Also, games do come up where you just can randomly cast it.
Yeah, with the amount of Lotus Petals you have, that's not impossible. Both players will bring something to Show and Tell. It's going to be Meddling Mage from Braverman and Grave Titan from Hoogland. So now we have a pretty reasonable, fair game of Magic here. We'll see if Braverman can grind his way through this 6-6.
This is not quite as overwhelming as something like Gristlebrand. That said, this creature is definitely a lot more powerful than anything that Michael has in his deck.
As far as kill spells for Grave Titan, they're few and far between here. He can Jace to bounce it, and that may be just about it.
You can try to trade with Baleful Strix, but you know, Grave Titan leaves a lot of leftovers. Also, trading is not great against Reanimator because the creature has a habit of coming back.
Meddling Mage was brought in for Braverman, and it was set to Careful Study. A pretty good call here, as I think Braverman identified that what Jeff was missing was a discard outlet.
And now Jeff really pushing here with this play.
Yeah, he'll cast Reanimate on Braverman's Tarmogoyf. That'll be the last card in his hand. Tarmogoyf
And I
now
think
into play.
the reason that Jeff's doing that is because Michael's playing with discard spells. He doesn't want to have a Reanimate left over in his hand in the event that Michael draws something like Thoughtseize. I don't know where I lean on that play. It's possible I would have rather just had the Reanimate as backup in case something happens with the Grave Titan. Although at that point, Jeff falls to 4 and it gets a little hairy. So that play, I think, is, on the balance, I think that play is fine. I can see your rationale for trying to leave the Reanimate in your hand, but I can also see an incentive just to cast it.
And a tough spot Braverman here. Now Wastelands, Jeff. But no way to get through and just one land in hand. If Grave Titan swings in, Michael can kill it, but it'll cost him quite a lot.
And it's a Death Touch creature too, so jumping a bunch of creatures in front is not great.
So Grave Titan will swing. It'll make 2 more zombies. And we'll see whether or not Braverman wants to make that block.
And another problem with the block is it commits the Tarmogoyf, and once the Tarmogoyf is off the table, then Jeff's Tarmogoyf and all the zombies start running in too. So a block here is just a temporary reprieve.
And that's what he's going to do. He'll trade the Goyf and the Shardless Agent away for the Grave Titan. So now Jeff with a 5/6 Goyf of his own and 4 zombies. Braverman just with a lonely Meddling Mage. Sultai is very good at grinding. Can he grind his way through all of this before it kills him?
I mean, Sultai is pretty good at grinding, but not as good as Grave Titan is at grinding.
Braverman will crack a fetch.
The king of the grind.
And 1 creature there making 4 zombies. White mana from Braverman, it's going to be a copy of Jace.
Jace is quite good here.
Well, so
I mean, unsummon on the Tarmogoyf is not bad here. Is now
puts it in Braverman's hand, yeah.
Yeah, it's now back in Braverman's hand. Jeff can untap and kill the Jace, but then the Tarmogoyf is against a bunch of zombies, and play moves on.
Play moves on, and it's interesting. We'll see who that favors as that. Can Jeff redraw another copy of the combo before Michael just outvalues?
Yep.
2 zombies will go at Jace, 2 zombies at Michael. We'll see if Michael wants to trade Meddling Mage with a zombie. I don't think so.
I think they're of approximately equal value on the board. Meddling Mage is naming Careful Study, which has some value. Also, once Tarmogoyf comes down, that locks out all the tokens. So there doesn't seem to be that much of an incentive to trade this turn.
Yeah, I think he'd be trading if he was worried that Jeff could just go, 6 damage, then 4 damage, then 2 damage, just kind of push through 20 that way.
Yep.
Looks like Michael will trade Meddling Mage with one of the zombies that was coming at him, so he only took 2, going to 16. And now there's the Tarmogoyf he unsummoned. He'll play that again, drew a card, and pass back over to Jeff. It is 6-7, actually. Thanks to Jace. And for Jeff, time to reload. Drew Brainstorm for the turn. Here's 3 new cards. Another copy of Reanimate.
That's a big one. As that Goyf was actually in a position to start attacking next turn. Michael ahead in the damage raise.
Play a fetch land here. And Reanimate's going to be cast again. Jeff's going to go for Grave Titan again. That'll put himself down to 4, but that's going to be very difficult for Michael to get through.
Yep. I mean, Michael was in a great position if he avoided a reanimation effect from Jeff this turn, because the Goyf's 6-7 ahead on the damage race. He could have started attacking, but now things have gotten really bad again.
Yeah, 5 zombies accompanying Grave Titan. Maybe it's possible if he gets a card like Deathrite Shaman, he can sneak 4 damage across before he's dead.
It's got to be about now, though.
Yeah, it's got to be right now. He'll Duress. Not a spell in Jeff's hand. Or, oh no, just holding it on the stack. You think, we'll see where he's at. Down to 3. Okay, he'll cast the Brainstorm.
That would explain it.
Yeah. Doesn't actually want to lose that one. So barring a Deathrite Shaman this turn, can Michael sneak? across, I suppose, across enough damage.
With Jeff now going from 4 to 3, Vendilion Click becomes a big draw. That's a way for Michael to maybe sneak it. Even if he draws it next turn, I would be surprised if Jeff was cobbling together lethal over the course of the next 2 turns. Maybe there's just too much pressure at this point. But if the last card in Michael's hand somehow is Vendilion Click, he's in good shape.
Maybe Michael could dig through time into 2 Death Rights, and that could be enough.
Yeah, there's some options here, but it's got to be now.
Right. And he'll pass. Is the Vendilion Click in his hand? Certainly would be what he's looking for, having just put Jeff to 3. And here comes the attack. It's going to be everything but 1 zombie. 2 more zombies in to play off the Grave Titan. So this is a potential swing of 14.
Yeah, Jeff holding back 1 token because Michael could theoretically have removal spell in hand and draw a removal spell, and Jeff would die on the crackback.
Tarmogoyf looks like it'll stand in front of a zombie. Oh, it's going to stand in front of a Grave Titan. So Michael will take 8, go to 8. Tarmogoyf does trade away with Grave Titan, but there are 7 zombies in play. Unless Michael has something like a Maelstrom Pulse, which...
Nothing hanging out here of the sort.
Yeah, sometimes it's a one-of you see in these decks, but not right here.
And Jeff with a needle left over, just thinking if there's something he should be needling here.
So boarding in the needle for Shardless Sultai, it's mainly just as defense against Deathrite Shaman.
That's the big one. It can come up in weird spots against the Planeswalkers, maybe now Spellbomb if that gets played on the first turn.
And Jeff passes, and Michael, without that end step Vendilion Click, I don't know if he has a way to deal 3. Jeff named Pernicious Deed. It certainly is a card that could help here. Shardless Agent from Braverman. Last-ditch effort. I don't know what he's hoping to cascade into. Well, there's Deathrite.
It's too much coming across unless Michael has some other follow-up.
Yep, 10 unblocked damage, and that's a land in Braverman's hands. So there you have it. Jeff Hoogland, he moves to 12-2, 6-0 on the day. He's the first person to defeat Michael Braverman.
Michael still, of course, locked for the top 8, as we know, and Jeff very close himself now at 12-2.
At 12-2, 1 more win should, especially if 1 coming next round, should be more than enough to do it.